right, let's do example 6. In this case, they're giving us an equation for the function f of x. And then they're saying that g is the inverse function of x. So g is equal to f inverse. And they tell us that f of 0 equals 1, which we could have figured that out by plugging it in. But they told us that, okay? The lovely thing about that is if they've told us f of 0 equals 1, that means g of 1 equals 0 because they're inverses, okay? So that's a little, yay, this is what we know, okay? And then it wants to know what is the value of g prime of 1. So if g is the inverse and it's wanting us to find the derivative of g, then we need to find this is the derivative of the inverse. And we're going to use our formula. G prime of 1 is going to be 1 over the derivative of f at g of 1. All right, so g of 1, we actually know what that is. G of 1, we know it. They gave us f of 0 is 1, so we know g of 1 is 0. This is going to be 1 over f prime of 0. We do not have f prime, but we do have f, and we have derivative rules. So we can use our derivative rules to figure out what f prime of x is. This is going to be a chain rule. This is a blow pop problem. We're going to need to bring that 3 down in front. And it's still 2x plus 1 squared. Don't forget that squared. Times the derivative of the bubble gum. Almost went too far. So derivative of 2x plus 1 is just 2. And now we need f prime of 0. That's going to be 3. 2 times 0 plus 1 squared times 2. F prime of 0 is 3 times 1 squared times 2, which is 6. Fantastic. Our life is easy. F prime of 0 is 6. So we get to just write this as 1 over 6. And that is our final answer. All right, let's back up to doing this with a table of values. Okay, so we have selected values of strictly monotonic function g of x and its derivative g prime are shown in the table. Monotonic just means it's either always increasing or always decreasing. It never changes direction. This is wanting us to find, for part A, the derivative of the inverse of g at 1. So let's use our formula. G inverse prime of 1 is 1 over g prime of g inverse of 1. All right, finding g inverse from a table is actually pretty easy. We just got to think through what we're doing. If we're finding g inverse, normally, if I were trying to find g of 1, just g of 1, I would go to where x is 1 and then find g of 1. But I'm wanting to find g inverse, which means I'm moving backwards in the table. So instead of looking up 1 for an x, I'm going to look up 1 as a y. This is a y value in the table. So I'm going to go along here in g of x and see where g of x equals 1. So g of x equals 1 right here. And when g of x is 1, x is negative 1, right? So what we know is that g of negative 1 is 1. So g inverse of 1 is negative 1. All right. So g inverse of 1 is negative 1. That's what we're going to plug in there. So that gives us 1 over g prime of negative 1. And then we just look up g prime of negative 1. G prime of negative 1 is going to be in the same column. It's negative 1/5. So we get 1 over negative 1/5, which is negative 5. All right. Let's do some highlighting there just to make sure. G prime of negative 1. We're right there. Okay. All right. Let's do the same thing here. We're going to find g inverse prime of negative 3. Let's do our formula. 1 over g prime, g inverse of negative 3. So we're going to look up negative 3 as a y value right here. So our answer is going to be 4. G inverse of negative 3 is actually 4. All right, so that gives us 1 over g prime of 4. And then we're down in the same column right here. G prime of 4 is 2. So this is 1 over negative 2, sorry. And that is our final answer. That's going to be it for our notes. If you want to work number 3, you can. I would not worry about doing number 2. We'll get to that later. That's it for the video.